Meet Eleanor Anderson, a once wealthy widow who is about to embark on a heartwarming journey that will change her life and the lives of those around her. In the wake of her passing, Elena's will unveils a surprising twist that leaves her $5 million mansion in the hands of a complete stranger, not her 3 sons. Let's dive into the captivating chapters of the story and uncover the hidden secrets and heartwarming lessons that unfold. Eleanor Anderson had led a life of privilege. She was the widow of Charles Anderson, a prosperous businessman whose success had afforded her a grand mansion, financial security, and the means to provide her 3 sons with everything they desired. Her husband's tragic death in a car accident had left her as the sole custodian of their considerable estate. In her younger years, Eleanor was the epitome of grace and charm. She and Charles had been deeply in love, their connection stronger than any challenge that came their way. They built a life together, cherishing each moment and raising their 3 sons, Matthew, Thomas, and Henry. As her husband's business empire grew, so did their wealth, and their sons were raised with every comfort imaginable. Private schools, luxurious vacations, and an abundance of material possessions were par for the course. Elena reveled in her role as the matriarch of the family, ensuring her boys lacked for nothing. However, as the years passed, so did the vitality of their family life. The once happy household began to transform into a cold, cavernous mansion. The echoes of laughter were replaced by an unsettling silence, serving as a constant reminder of the growing emotional distance between Elena and her sons. When the time came for Matthew, the eldest, to pursue his education and career, he moved away, leaving the family home behind. His departure was followed by Thomas and Henry, each setting off on their paths, further severing the once close ties that bound them together. Elena's desire for her sons to be close to her, to look after her as she had cared for them, seemed to have been forgotten. It wasn't as though Eleanor was entirely alone. She had Marilyn, her devoted caretaker, who tended to her daily needs. Yet nothing could compare to the warmth of her own family's presence. She often found herself in the spacious rooms of her magnificent mansion, feeling the loneliness like a heavy shroud. It wasn't long before the world-changing news arrived. Eleanor had been diagnosed with terminal cancer. The doctors delivered the devastating verdict, painting a grim picture of the limited time left. Elena, whose heart had ached to see her sons one final time, was overwhelmed with despair. Her wish was simple. She wanted her sons by her side, to hold their hands, to hear their voices, to see their faces one last time. Marilyn, understanding the urgency and depth of Eleanor's request, reached out to each of the 3 boys. She invited them to a family dinner at their childhood home, unaware of the harsh reality that awaited them. Elena's world crumbled as the doctor's words echoed in her ears. Terminal cancer. It was a devastating diagnosis that left her feeling vulnerable and afraid. Her thoughts immediately turned to her 3 sons, Matthew, Thomas, and Henry. She desperately wanted to see them one last time, to share her love, her fears, and her final moments with them. With a heavy heart, Elena instructed Marilyn, her devoted caretaker, to reach out to her sons and arrange a family dinner. She believed that in their presence, she could find some solace in the face of her impending mortality. The responses from her sons, however, were far from what she had anticipated. They revealed a stark reality she had been unable to see clearly before, the emotional distance that had grown between her and her children. Matthew, the eldest, was the first to respond, and his words struck like a hammer blow. He reacted as if his mother's request was an inconvenience. "Look, Marilyn, Mom needs to understand that we're no longer high school students who can make time for her anytime she wants. We have jobs and families to take care of. I'll check with my receptionist to see if I have time next month, but it won't be possible this month." Elena, who had been listening to the call, couldn't hold back her tears as she overheard her son's reaction. She quickly wiped her eyes, forcing a smile as she muttered to Marilyn, "Oh, these children." It was a facade, a brave front, to conceal the hurt that Matthew's words had caused her. Marilyn, who had been carrying out Elena's wishes, insisted, "If you could just make time this month, that would be fantastic. Your mother's health isn't good and she wants to see you." But Matthew remained resolute, his tone callous and uncaring. "Then take her to a bloody hospital, Marilyn. Why the hell are you bothering me? I'm not a doctor who can treat people." With that, he hung up, leaving Elena devastated and alone in her room. The painful exchange was followed by calls to Thomas and Henry, but the outcomes only served to deepen Elena's despair. Thomas failed to answer his phone, and when Henry picked up, he informed Marilyn that he wouldn't be able to come. He claimed he was traveling to India to meet with foreign investors and fabricated an illness to avoid seeing his ailing mother. The rejection from all three of her sons in one way or another crushed Elena's spirit. She retreated to her room, locked the door, and cried herself to sleep, clutching a framed photograph of her beloved husband, Andrew. In the darkness of her solitude, she whispered, "I'm very sorry, Andrew. I think we were so focused on fulfilling our children's needs that we forgot to teach them the value of family." As Eleanor's condition continued to deteriorate, she found herself increasingly dependent on the support of her caretaker, Marilyn. The emotional wounds inflicted by her son's rejections ran deep, and the once grand mansion felt emptier than ever. Her longing for their presence was unquenchable, but their absence was a haunting reminder of the love she felt slipping away. One day, as Eleanor sat in the elegant but deserted living room, a knock at the door disrupted the silence. It was Mrs. Mitchell, their kind-hearted neighbor who lived next door. A modest widow with her son, Nicholas, Mrs. Mitchell had become fast friends with Elena, forming a bond that transcended their differing socio-economic backgrounds. Mrs. Mitchell, her eyes filled with concern, asked Elena how she was feeling. Elena, who was touched by her neighbor's genuine care, opened up about her pain and the growing distance between her and her sons. She confided in Mrs. Mitchell, who was known for her compassion and wisdom. Listening attentively, Mrs. Mitchell couldn't believe how mean Elena's sons had been to her. "I shouldn't have called them in front of you," Marilyn said, feeling guilty for the pain Elena had endured. That only offended her more because she heard everything. Mrs. Mitchell, now more determined than ever, reassured Marilyn. "It's good you called me Marilyn. I'm going to teach those boys a lesson they won't forget. Who cares about those jerks? Cheering up Elena will be our priority." Marilyn, who had grown close to Elena and cared deeply for her well-being, agreed wholeheartedly. Elena's happiness had become a mission, and she understood that her elderly charge needed the love and care she was so desperately lacking. But there was more to the situation. Mrs. Mitchell knew something that Elena's sons did not. Elena had only a month left to live, a painful truth that had been revealed to her just that day. Her sons remained unaware of this ticking clock, and Mrs. Mitchell knew she had to make Elena's final days as meaningful and joyful as possible. Mrs. Mitchell said, "What we learn from this story is that all people need love and care, and you shouldn't refrain from giving it to them." Elena wished for her sons to be close to her in her old age, but they never cared to look after her. As the days went by, Elena's health continued to decline, but her relationship with Mrs. Mitchell and her son, Nicholas, grew stronger. They provided companionship, comfort, and a sense of family that Elena had longed for. In her final days, Elena made a life-altering decision that would change the course of her legacy and the futures of those who truly cared for her. As Eleanor's health deteriorated and her days grew numbered, she found solace in the presence of her caring neighbor, Mrs. Mitchell, and her son, Nicholas. That unwavering support and love helped fill the void left by her distant sons. Together, they shared moments of laughter, companionship, and heartfelt conversations that brought some light into Elena's otherwise challenging final days. During this time, Elena made a significant decision that her sons remained completely unaware of. She decided to revise her will, ensuring that her assets were distributed in a way that truly reflected the love and care she had received during her most vulnerable moments. The fateful day arrived when Elena passed away peacefully in her sleep. Her sons, who had been informed of her passing, attended her funeral with mixed emotions. Some were driven by grief, while others were excited about the inheritance they assumed awaited them. They had no idea of the changes Elena had made to her will. When Elena's lawyer, Mr. Williams, began to read the will aloud, the room fell into a hushed silence. The sons were eager to hear what their mother had left behind, but their excitement was short-lived. Mr. Williams announced, "Eleanor Anderson's last will and testament specifies that her $5 million mansion, along with other holdings, is to be inherited by Mr. Nicholas Mitchell." The sons were stunned and could hardly believe their ears. Their expressions shifted from anticipation to confusion and anger. Matthew, the eldest, couldn't contain his frustration. Who the hell is Nicholas Mitchell, and why would Mom leave our mansion to him? Mr. Williams calmly continued, "But I'm not finished yet." He went on to explain that the remaining assets and properties would be divided among Mrs. Mitchell, Marilyn, and a charity that Elena had dedicated her life to, a charity supporting neglected senior citizens. Harry, one of Elena's sons, couldn't hide his astonishment. What was the matter with Mom? Was she insane? How could she leave a fortune to some stranger? However, before he could utter another word, a familiar voice cut through the tension. "She made the right decision," said Marilyn, standing alongside Mrs. Mitchell. "You boys were nothing but mean to her in her final days. You didn't come to see her when she needed you the most." Mrs. Mitchell joined in, her voice laced with disappointment and anger. "You kids were so abusive to her, and now you want all of her money. Did you know she had cancer? That's why she died." Elena's sons tried to defend themselves, claiming they had not known about their mother's condition. But the truth was undeniable. Their neglect had hurt their mother deeply. As the confrontation continued, it was clear that Elena's sons, consumed by their selfish desires, had lost sight of the love and care their mother needed in her final days. In the end, they couldn't fight the provisions of Elena's will, and they left the room, defeated and empty-handed. Elena's legacy lived on through Nicholas, Mrs. Mitchell, and Marilyn. Together, they founded a charity dedicated to creating a network of homes for senior citizens who, like Elena, often found themselves alone and neglected by their families. This heartwarming story serves as a reminder that love, care, and kindness should never be taken for granted, especially in the lives of the elderly who yearn for the presence of their loved ones in their final moments. Elena's legacy of compassion and generosity will forever endure through the charity she inspired, ensuring that others receive the love and care they deserve. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe, and this other story that may be appearing on the screen will most likely move you as well. Have a nice day and see you in the next video.